She was born behind gilded walls, beneath ceilings painted with angels and saints. Yet from the first moment the palace saw her, no one spoke of beauty or grace. They spoke, silently and fearfully, of the price the dynasty had paid for generations of marrying their own blood. The cost was written across the body of the newborn princess, Maria Anna of Bavaria. The courtiers gathered in a room where everything glowed with gold and polished marble, but when they approached her cradle, they did not smile. Several stepped back. A few raised their jeweled fans to shield their expressions. Servants paused in place, pretending to adjust candles or curtains so they would not be caught staring. The truth spread through the room like a cold draft. The baby did not look like the princess they expected. She looked like the consequence they had tried to hide. The chandelier above her burned with perfect symmetry. The painted angels on the ceiling watched a world that demanded flawlessness. The marble floor beneath her reflected every curve and every line of her small, distorted body. Outside, the Bavarian trumpets announced the birth of a royal daughter. Inside, the air thickened with unspoken judgment. From her very first breath, the contrast was merciless. A palace that worshipped perfection. A child who carried the quiet evidence of a dynasty collapsing from within. The nobles did not see her as a blessing. They saw her as a reminder that power always extracts its price. And so, long before Maria Anna could speak, walk, or even understand the world around her, her fate was already shaped by the whispers of those who believed she should never have existed. This is the beginning of her story. If you want more histories buried in darkness, subscribe to the channel now. Long before Maria Anna was born, the House of Wittelsbach had already carved its place into European history. For centuries, they ruled with a proud and unshakable conviction that their bloodline was superior. Every palace hall, every towering portrait, every marble statue echoed the same message. The dynasty must remain untouched, untainted, and preserved at any cost. Purity was not just a belief, it was an obsession. This obsession shaped every marriage arranged within the family. Political alliances mattered, but blood came first. Cousins were paired with cousins, uncles with nieces. Generations of tightly woven unions created a lineage that looked perfect on painted canvases, yet carried invisible fractures deep beneath the skin. The Wittelsbachs had convinced themselves that keeping their bloodline pure would strengthen their power. In reality, it weakened the very bodies of their descendants. Through the years, whispers traveled quietly through royal halls far from the public eye. Strange illnesses, children who struggled to walk or speak, heirs whose minds drifted into confusion long before their time. Physicians documented patterns they were not allowed to name. Servants saw the truth, but knew their tongues must remain still. The dynasty refused to admit the consequences of its choices, for doing so meant admitting the system itself was flawed. Into this world of concealed damage and proud denial, Maria Anna arrived. Her birth was not a sudden tragedy, but the inevitable result of decisions made by those who valued politics over humanity. She did not inherit a curse. She inherited mathematics, the slow, predictable result of collapsing genetic lines. The court never said this aloud. Instead, they clung to a cruel surface-level explanation. They whispered about her appearance as if it were an isolated misfortune, something that happened only to her. But the truth was larger and far darker. The palace that judged her was the same palace that created her fate. Maria Anna was not born unattractive in the poetic sense so often used to humiliate her. She was born as living evidence, Her features reflected centuries of choices made by men and women who believed they could bend nature to their will. She carried the marks of decisions made long before she ever opened her eyes. In the grand tapestry of the Wittelsbach family, she was not a flaw. She was a consequence, the result of a system that demanded purity while ignoring the cost. Her appearance was not a moral failing or a spiritual punishment. It was biology, sharpened by ambition, and sealed by a dynasty too proud to face its own reflection. And so, while the court continued to hide the truth behind soft fabric and painted smiles, Maria Anna lived as the quiet reminder of what happens when power refuses to acknowledge its own limits. The tragedy was never her. The tragedy was the world that made her this way. Maria Anna spent her earliest years inside a palace that shimmered like a dream, yet felt as sterile as a chamber built for observation. The floors were polished until they reflected every passing figure. The walls carried elaborate tapestries that depicted triumphs her family celebrated, though none of those victories made the air feel warm. Every corridor held a strange silence, the kind that follows a place where truth is known but never acknowledged. It was a palace for display, not for comfort. When her family first gathered to see her grow past infancy, their reactions cut deeper than any spoken judgment. Her mother looked at her with a fixed, distant expression, as if she were searching for features that refused to appear. Her father maintained a measured stillness, showing neither affection nor anger, only calculation. To him, she was another piece in a lineage he was sworn to protect. But even he could not ignore the unease in the room whenever she entered. The courtiers were less restrained. Some stiffened their posture. Others lowered their eyes to avoid the discomfort of looking directly at her. A few turned to the nearest distraction, a painting or a vase, just to escape the moment. It was not hatred. It was avoidance, a quiet refusal to accept what stood before them. Everything about the palace demanded outward perfection, and Maria Anna did not fit the image its walls were built to uphold. Historical accounts of her appearance did not try to soften the truth. Chroniclers described her features plainly, without kindness and without dramatization. They wrote of an uneven face, a jaw that seemed to pull to one side, and a posture that lacked the effortless grace expected of a princess. These records were not crafted to insult her. They were written with the cold objectivity of observers who believed their duty was to document rather than protect. As she grew older, Maria Anna learned instinctively where she was expected to stand. She stayed behind thick curtains during grand gatherings. She walked along the quieter sides of corridors where the light did not fall directly on her face. During official events, she positioned herself behind statues or columns, allowing the shadows to soften her outline. She moved with the hesitance of someone who understood that being seen often meant being judged. No one ordered her to hide. Yet the atmosphere of the palace made the message unmistakable. She did not belong in the center of celebrations or public ceremonies. Her presence disrupted the illusion of flawless prosperity the dynasty wanted the world to believe. So she learned to make herself small, silent, and easy to overlook. In these early years, Maria Anna became a child shaped not by affection, but by distance. She felt the weight of eyes that preferred not to rest on her, and she carried the quiet knowledge that the palace she called home was never meant to embrace someone like her. This was the beginning of a life lived in the margins of her own family. As Maria Anna grew older, the distance that once surrounded her childhood solidified into something far more painful. The palace continued to host lavish celebrations, evenings filled with music, candlelight, and nobles draped in silk. Yet even in these moments designed to display the brilliance of the dynasty, She existed only at the edge of the room. She was present, but not included. A silent figure positioned near a wall or behind a pillar, like an ornament placed because tradition required it, not because anyone wished for her company. During these gatherings, conversations flowed easily among the guests. Laughter rose and fell in graceful waves. Dancers spun across the marble floors, their movements rehearsed and admired. But whenever Maria Anna stepped too close, the rhythm faltered. Eyes shifted away. Groups dissolved and reformed a few steps farther. It was as if her presence disrupted the harmony the court worked so hard to craft. No one scolded her or pushed her aside. They simply behaved as if she were not there, which was a far sharper cruelty. As she reached a suitable age, marriage negotiations began. For a princess of her status, marriage was never meant to be romantic. It was a strategic alliance, a political bridge, a carefully calculated exchange. But each proposal crumbled almost as soon as it was introduced. Visiting nobles who had not yet met her in person hesitated once her name appeared in the discussion. Those who had seen her offered polite excuses about distant borders or shifting priorities. Envoys avoided direct questions, hoping to escape without giving offense. The message repeated itself again and again, though no one dared say it aloud. She was not a choice they were willing to accept. Behind closed doors, whispers grew louder. Servants carried murmurs from one corridor to another. Courtiers lowered their voices, but still allowed the rumors to spread. Some called her the reminder of what the dynasty had tried to deny. Others repeated a colder phrase that drifted through the palace like a draft. They called her the curse of the Wittelsbachs, not because she caused misfortune, but because she represented it. Maria Anna heard fragments of these rumors. She was never the intended audience, yet they found their way to her all the same. The words sank into her with a quiet heaviness. They tried to frame her as the source of the family's shame, when in truth she was only the result of choices made long before she existed. She had not asked to be born into a lineage that valued blood more than well-being. She had not chosen the path that shaped her body and her life. Every rejection, every whisper, every diverted gaze reinforced a truth she already understood. She was not the architect of her misfortune. She was its inheritor, a living reflection of decisions made by others, carrying consequences she never deserved. In these years, the palace did not simply overlook her. It blamed her without ever speaking the accusation. And Maria Anna learned that the harshest wounds were the ones inflicted in silence. When Maria Anna reached the age considered appropriate for marriage, the court arranged a union that was neither born of love nor of political strategy. It was a solution, a quiet way to resolve a problem the dynasty wished to conceal. She married Friedrich August II of Saxony, then Crown Prince of Saxony. The match gave her a title, but offered no warmth or companionship. The ceremony took place in Dresden under the eyes of a court that regarded her as an obligation rather than a person. The day was formal, precise, and lacked any celebration for her own sake. Guests spoke politely, smiled without enthusiasm, and their attention never lingered. Maria Anna moved through the ritual with the composure she had learned from years of observation, always at the edge, never at the center. After the marriage, she assumed the role of crown princess. The title carried status but little comfort. She had no children to secure her legacy, no influence over court decisions, and no recognition that she had ever truly existed. The palace that once scrutinized every detail of her infancy now offered only silence. Her life became a quiet routine, removed from the grandeur she was born into, a life observed but never celebrated. In Dresden, Maria Anna withdrew from the central circles of court life. She lived in a smaller residence, far from the constant gaze and gossip of the nobility. The streets were quieter, the rooms less ornate, and the world beyond her windows seemed indifferent to her presence. She moved through her days with restraint, attending events when required, yet always maintaining a distance, preserving the small space that was solely hers. Her existence in this quiet corner of royal life was neither dramatic nor scandalous. There were no great triumphs, no public displays of influence. Instead, there was routine, observation, and a lingering sense of being unseen. Maria Anna existed in the margins, carrying the weight of her early life into adulthood, her role defined by duty and circumstance rather than choice or desire. Her life had become a shadow of the brilliance she had been born into, a quiet presence in a world that refused to fully notice her. Maria Anna's life ended quietly, far from the grandeur and scrutiny that had shaped her childhood. She did not die in the midst of court celebrations, nor was there a public ceremony to mark her passing. No trumpets announced her absence. No curtains were drawn across city streets. Her death was noted in the official records, recorded with the same detached precision that had long defined her existence. She was barely 30, her body still young, yet the years of isolation, expectation, and subtle neglect had left their mark. The court that had once observed her every flaw now looked away entirely. She left the world as she had lived in it, almost invisible, present only in passing glances and brief mentions. The silence surrounding her departure was complete, a final reflection of the life she had been allowed to live. Her remains were laid to rest in the crypt of the Wittelsbach family, a vast underground chamber where generations of ancestors rested. Marble slabs and cold stone walls enclosed the bodies of those who had carried the weight of ambition, duty, and the consequences of royal inbreeding. In this space, Maria Anna was placed among distant relatives whose lives had been similarly constrained, a lineage of inherited burdens etched into their very bones. The crypt itself was a solemn testament to a dynasty that valued power and purity over the fullness of human experience. Here lay those who had been shaped and limited by choices made long before they drew breath. In this silent gathering of the past, Maria Anna's presence was both a continuation and a quiet indictment. She was one among many, yet her story held a clarity that transcended titles and dates. The symbolism of her life and death cannot be overlooked. She had been born into luxury, yet denied the freedom to define herself. She had held the title of princess and later crown princess, yet those honors never translated into affection, autonomy, or recognition. Her final resting place was not marked by fanfare or remembrance. It was marked only by stone and shadow, a reminder that some lives, no matter how visible in their time, are ultimately reduced to echoes. Maria Anna's story represents more than personal tragedy. It embodies the consequences of a system that prized bloodlines and prestige over humanity. She was never permitted to live fully as a princess, and she was never remembered fully as a person. In the silent crypt, her existence becomes a mirror of the countless lives confined and diminished by dynastic obsession. Even in death, she remained a reflection of a world that demanded perfection, yet failed to protect its own. Her life and passing are a quiet warning. Ambition and pride may elevate a family in history, but they often do so at the expense of the most vulnerable, leaving them invisible, forgotten, and yet forever a part of the lineage they never chose. The Wittelsbach dynasty worked tirelessly to maintain an image of perfection. Every portrait, Every public appearance, every decree was meant to project power, elegance, and control. Yet beneath the gilded veneer, the consequences of their obsession with purity and bloodline rippled quietly but relentlessly. Maria Anna's life stands as a stark testament to the hidden costs of such ambition. She was a living illustration of what happens when lineage is elevated above life itself. Her body, her existence, were shaped and constrained by decisions made decades before her birth. She bore the weight of genetic inheritance imposed by generations of inbreeding. Yet she was also weighed down by the unspoken expectations of a court that demanded flawless appearances. Every rejection, every whispered rumor, every subtle exclusion she endured was a reflection of a system that measured worth in titles, not in humanity. History often glorifies triumphs, victories, and the grandeur of royalty. It praises kings, queens, and conquerors while erasing the casualties of their ambition. Maria Anna's story reminds us that for every celebrated ruler, there are those whose lives were quietly destroyed to uphold the illusion of strength and perfection. She was never powerful, never celebrated, never remembered. Yet in the shadows of her silence, the truth of her existence becomes impossible to ignore. Her life exposes the dark lesson that power exercised without regard for human cost is never clean. It leaves scars invisible to the casual observer, but indelible to those who bear them. Maria Anna was not merely unfortunate. She was a symptom of a dynasty's obsession, an embodiment of ambition turned inward and cruel. Her experience is a warning etched in flesh and history alike. The pursuit of unblemished legacy often comes at the expense of the most vulnerable. And so, the record of the Wittelsbachs is incomplete without her. She may not appear in grand narratives, nor feature in celebrated art, nor fill the pages of triumphant chronicles. Yet her existence, her suffering, and the quiet life she led illuminate the hidden shadow behind every gilded crown. History is not only written by the victors, it is also shaped by the bodies distorted by their ambitions. And in the darkness of the Bavarian palace, Maria Anna remains forgotten, not because she was ugly, but because the truth about her was too inconvenient to be remembered. If you want to uncover more forgotten stories of history and the human cost behind power, make sure to subscribe to the channel and never miss a story that history tried to hide.